Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military with Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Kiev. Zelensky yesterday in the evening stated that Russia is preparing another attack. The Russian army is preparing for a new combined attack, Zelensky said. Intelligence is providing information on this matter, he said in his evening address. Another important thing is that during the previous night, the Russians launched another attack through the territory of Ukraine, and the pro-Ukrainian sources reported that Russians launched 105 drones, and that the armored forces of Ukraine managed to bring down 84 targets. So obviously that wasn't the biggest attack, but this is something like a test from the Russian side. Another important article that I would like to point to attention is the weather forecast. So here we can see the weather forecast for Kiev for the next week, and as you can see, the weather forecast has worsened. Various meteorological services predict temperatures ranging from -22 to -26 degrees Celsius. So this is the picture, and as you can see, today is the Thursday of the 29th of January of 2026, and today the weather in the city of Kiev is more or less comfortable. But starting from the 30th of January of 2026, the temperature will fall significantly below zero, and we will see -11 degrees Celsius. And for example, this Saturday we will see -15, and during the Tuesday and Thursday or Wednesday of the next week, we will see the temperature between -22 and -16. So this is going to be a very difficult situation in Ukraine, and in this capital of Ukraine, the city of Kiev, and most likely right before these dates, the Russians are planning to attack Ukraine with the purpose to deal significant damage to the critical and energy infrastructure. And you know that this morning we start receiving lots of very interesting updates. As of now, just from pro-Ukrainian sources, we haven't received anything from pro-Russian sources. They still haven't confirmed this information. But this morning, pro-Ukrainian sources stated that both the Russians and the Ukrainians agreed not to attack energy infrastructure of each other. So it seems that today, on the 29th of January 2026, the energy truce has started or begun working. We are waiting for additional proofs. We are waiting for additional statements from the Russian side. But if this information is correct, this means that most likely Ukraine were forced to make concessions regarding, let's say, agreement with the Russian Federation, and regarding territorial concessions and so on. So once again, as of the morning of the 29th of January of 2026, just pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed that both the Russians and the Ukrainians ordered not to bomb and attack energy infrastructure of each other. As of the Russian side, they still haven't confirmed this. And you know that this morning we received another very interesting statement published by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. Ukraine offers Moldova military assistance and to liberate itself from Russian troops in Transnistria. Kiev intends to participate more actively in the regional process, stated Foreign Minister Sibiga. According to him, Kiev is ready to assist Chisinau if an official request is received. Overall, Ukraine declares its readiness to cooperate with Moldova in the security sphere. Sibiga stated that Kiev is prepared to consider Chisinau requests for practical cooperation in the field of security. He called the presence of the Russian contingent in Transnistria a violation of international law, emphasizing. So he's trying to tell us that if Moldova just asks, Ukraine will help Moldovians to establish complete control over the Transnistria region. And as you can see, this information was published this morning during this period of time when the Russians were considering to begin attacking the territory of Ukraine. So maybe this is the deal. Maybe this is exactly a compromise or something like this, because, for example, Ukrainians sent maybe a message to the Russians if they attack the territory of Ukraine or the objects of energy infrastructure once again, then they will attack Transnistria and they will restore the territorial integrity of Moldova. Who knows what kind of talks are taking place right now behind the scene, because just yesterday in the evening we received the report that Russia is likely planning to carry out another large-scale combined missile and drone attack on Ukraine in the coming days, and different sources calculated and managed to discover lots of aircrafts and managed to calculate possible number of missiles that the Russians were planning to. So everything is ready. Everything was ready until the morning of the 29th of January. And once again, according to pro-Ukrainian sources, for some reason, both the Russians and the Ukrainians decided not to attack each other. Once again, maybe this is connected with the situation in Transnistria. Maybe the Ukrainians were forced to make some concessions regarding Russia's demands on the territorial issue. Anyway, let's wait and see, because another important thing is that the United States has set a condition for Ukraine that Kyiv sign first the peace agreement with Moscow to receive security guarantees. So first of all, Ukraine must make concessions, most likely on the territorial issue, and only then the United States of America will provide security guarantees for Kyiv. So everything is complicated, but the situation is very interesting. Once again, we are waiting confirmation from pro-Russian sources on this matter. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and this morning the most important and interesting updates are coming from the territory along the border. This morning, the group of forces north stated that as a result of clashes, they managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Bela Bereza. This is the second village that was captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation in the most northern part of the Sumy region. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the situation by the end of the 28th. This is the situation by the morning of the 29th. The village was captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation, and the Russians continue advancing. I would like to remind you that this site, this part of Ukraine, we're talking about the most northeastern part of Ukraine, which includes the most northeastern part of Chernihiv region and the most northern part of Sumy region, is a very important and strategical position for the armed forces of Ukraine, because exactly from this territory, the Ukrainians launch their drones deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation, especially if they want to attack the city of Moscow. So that is why it is a very important situation for Russians, and the Russians most likely understand if they want to secure the city of Moscow and the territory deep inside of the Russian Federation, they understand that most likely they would be forced to begin some offensive operation in this area with the purpose to force the Ukrainians to fall back, and the most important, to move this launching site deeper and closer to the city of Kyiv itself. Another important update is coming from the most southern part of the Sumy region. During the previous nights, according to pro-Russian sources, the armed forces of the Russian Federation managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Lukashovka, which is located along the border. So the village was taken by Russians. So this is, let's say, the second village through the Sumy region that was taken by Russians during the previous 24 hours. Now let's talk about the northeastern part of Kharkiv region. Here we have additional changes as well. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates. According to different pro-Russian sources, the armed forces of the Russian Federation by the morning of the 29th of January of 2026 established complete control over the settlement by the name of Volchansky Hutory. So either the entire settlement was colored under control of Russian, or at least 90%. So which means that we believe that we can start counting days before the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm this information. Furthermore, another pro-Russian source reported that Russians began advancing in the direction of the Kharkiv region from the village of Marina, and this huge forest, at least this part of this huge forest, was also captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. There is still a huge part of the forest that is still under complete control of the armed forces of Ukraine, but due to the Russian operation on the Ukrainian side of the river of Volcha, we believe that Ukrainians won't be able to hold their positions for a very long period of time, and they would be forced to fall back towards this forest, the second largest forest in this area. At the same time, we continue receiving a lot of updates of how Ukrainians are redeploying troops and forces in this area with the purpose to stabilize the situation, but the Russians control the situation, and if they see another vehicle entering this territory, they attack this vehicle immediately. Now let's talk about the Slaviansk direction. Different mappers during the previous 12 hours reported that Russians began offensive operation, or more precisely their major offensive operation, in the direction of the settlement of Alexandrivka. Neutral mappers stated that Russians answered the village from the south and from the southeast, and that currently there are very heavy clashes. So we are waiting for additional updates and changes on the ground. As for the Eastern Slavian direction, the picture hasn't been changed. During the previous 24 hours and during the previous night, we received lots of videos of how Russians were attacking and bombing positions of the armored forces of Ukraine through the eastern part of the Slaviansk front line. Lots of vehicles, lots of positions of the armored forces of Ukraine were attacked by the armored forces of the Russian Federation with artillery and with drones, and as you can see, without changes on the ground. So we see that the Ukrainians still control the situation in this area, and the Ukrainians don't allow the Russians to advance further in the western direction. As for the Konstantinovka direction, the Russian assault operation is ongoing. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos from the southern part of the city where we can see how the Russians were using aviation to attack and to destroy strongholds through the southern part of the city. So we see that currently we are at the active phase of the Russian offensive operation, and now the Russians are tasked to break through Ukrainian defense in this area with the purpose to answer the city from the south and to establish a foothold in this area. At the same time, several pro-Russian sources stated that the settlement of Bereztok, at least its southeastern part, was also captured by the armored forces of the Russian Federation. The Ukrainians control just the northern part of the settlement, and we see that the Russians are keeping advancing. As for the Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 12 hours, we received lots of interesting updates from the western Zaporozhye direction. For example, in this video, we can see how Ukrainians were bombing positions of the armored forces of the Russian Federation in its northeastern part of the settlement, and this video confirms the statements that were made by the chief of the General Staff of the armored forces of the Russian Federation that the settlement of Novoyakovlevka was captured by Russians. So this video confirms that at least at this point there were Russian troops when the Ukrainians were attacking them. Another video is coming from the northern part of Stepnogorsk. Here we can see the same story, because you know that lots of pro-Ukrainian sources still claim that these territories are under control of the armored forces of Ukraine. We're talking about the northern part of Stepnogorsk and the settlement of Novoyakovlevka, but these two videos confirm the opposite thing, that both territories are under complete control of the armored forces of the Russian Federation. So we are waiting for additional updates from Ukraine. Once again, according to different sources, both the Russians and the Ukrainians announced or started Energy Truth. We'll see this, we will understand that, and everything will become clear within the next days. As of now, we continue receiving lots of updates from the Persian Gulf. The United States of America continue build up process. According to information we have, the US has added new high-end military assets to its military east build-up, including a guided missile destroyer, joint electronic surveillance aircraft, boosting missile defense and intelligence gathering capabilities at tensions with Iran race. The US Navy now has 10 warships in the SATCOM area of responsibility. But I would like to point your attention that as of the forces of the United States of America in this area, the number of ships, aircrafts and capabilities, let's say Patriot capabilities, are less in comparison with the US build-up during the summer of 2025. So the current group of forces is about 65-85% of the group of forces that we saw in June of 2026. Furthermore, we don't have any updates about B-2 bombers, which means that most likely the United States of America have most likely completely different aims and targets in comparison with 2025, and they have less forces. But at the same time, the President of the United States of America reported that he sent another group or another fleet in this area. So we are waiting for these updates, and of course, if another group of forces, another aircraft carrier arrives in this area, then of course it will change the situation, and then most likely the conflict would be completely inevitable. And that's it for the short video. Military with Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.